Thank you, Julia, and hello, everybody. Welcome to our first webinar of this week, as Julia already mentioned. It's so nice to see this many of you from all over the world. That's always amazing. And we can officially start with our presentation. So today we are going to discuss what it is like to study a bachelor degree in the School of Arts, Design, and Architecture. As Julia already said, you can send questions to the panelists at the chat, but I would like to remind you not to ask admission questions because my panelists and I are not trained in answering that. So you can contact admissions at aalto.fi or join their webinar session on this Friday. And we can start. So I'm Milica. I'm also a student here on Aalto in architecture, and I will be your host for the day. And now we can hear more from our panelists. So today with us are Yuzu, Tina, and Owen, and they will tell you something about themselves.
Great, so I think I'll start. I'm Yuzu. I am a second-year design student studying in the BA Design English side, and I'm from Japan. I would say I don't really have a specific design focus at the moment. I'm just kind of learning everything that I can and trying to find my own interest along the way.
Thank you, Yuzu.
And I'm Tina. I'm originally from San Jose, California. I'm also a second year in the program, and currently my design interest is combining computer science and industrial design, so a field that would be called generative design. And I'm happy to see you all here interested in Alto.
Thank you, Tina.
Hello, I'm Owen. I'm from England. I'm in the second year of the Bachelor of Art and Design. Like the same with Yuzu and Tina. And I would say at the moment I'm specializing more in industrial design and product design.
Thank you, Lynn. And now we can discuss our studies because Aalto is home to unique study paths. And we can actually start with this amazing question. Why did you choose Aalto University in the first place? For example, Owen?
Yeah, so before joining Aalto University, I had previous experience of living in Finland, and I really enjoyed living in Finland, and I love the way Finland is as a country. So it's very nature orientated, it's very quiet, it's a really nice place to live. So it was like a kind of a natural progression to wanting to stay here more. So I wanted to study the design forms the Finnish way, the Nordic styling. So that's why I chose Alto, and they have they have some of the best workshops, teaching capacities, and also student cultures, which you can get in Europe. So it was kind of a no-brainer.
And Tina, how about you?
Yeah, I totally agree with Owen's comments about like the Nordic design and especially Aalto's reputation. For me personally, I also studied for a year before in like kind of traditional industrial design. So that top left corner was one of my first projects in university, and it was basically making a replica of an existing club. And I wanted to change because I had a very traditional design school, so it was just going to be doing kind of the same things that had been done before. And so on the right is that lamp looking thing was one of my first projects at Alto. And that was why I wanted to come here, because we had these far more experimental projects. So our first challenge was to make a lamp out of waste material and 3D printing. And so just that prompt immediately kind of from the beginning made me know that like this was the right place to come, because I wanted that more kind of challenging the boundaries and trying out something new rather than very traditional design.
Oh, wow, really amazing projects here. Thank you for sharing that with us. And Yuzu, how it was for you?
I totally agree with Owen and Tina, but for me, I was on a completely different path. I was trying to get into university for architecture, and Alto was the only kind of design subject that I chose to kind of apply to, mainly because the application prompt was also so interesting. It was so unlike anything else. wherein the other applications were just about portfolios. This, for Aalto, it was you had to create something completely, not done before. It was so experimental, and I thought that was pretty interesting. And also from an international point of view, as an international student fees are pretty integral into choosing which university to go to. And Aalto provided one of the, I think, most accommodating and best scholarship options for students. So that was kind of my main reason that I chose Aalto University.
Wow, really, really amazing. So we already kind of discussed about it, but if you could choose one thing, what would be the best part about studying at Alto for you?
I think for me, it would be the workshops. Like, I think these 4 photos demonstrate that because they're all of workshops. But yeah, definitely the workshops. I love working in the metal workshop and also the ceramic workshops, and all like the machinery are like top spec, brand new as you can get, basically. So you're really up to date with the design processes, which is amazing for like actually putting that into practice in the real world, because that's what you would be using. It's not out of date machinery. How about you, Yuzu?
Yeah, I totally agree with you. I was going to say workshops, because like you mentioned, it's the top-notch technology, but also amazing professors and workshop masters that really help you guide your project in the best and most efficient way possible. For example, there was a time where I had to use a laser cutting machine, and there weren't enough in Vare, like in our arts building. But then they referred me to the architecture side, which I normally wouldn't be able to go to, just so that I'll be able to finish my project on time. Certain things like that, they're just very accommodating. They can find different ways for you to get stuff done. And I think that's just amazing, because you don't feel like you feel prioritized, basically. So I would have to say that. What about you, Tina?
Yeah, definitely agree with all of that. And I think to add on to all of it, like what's kind of pictured here is also like the workshop masters, and generally like the educational environment at Alto is very, very open. So if you want to learn anything, you just have to ask. And that was one of the most appealing parts, because we have all these facilities and you can really use them. You just need to talk to the workshop master, say, hey, I want to learn this, I need to do this job, and they will help you through the whole process. And so it's like free access to these crazy tools, and you also have the support to really work with them.
Yeah, I'd like to add on to that what Tina said. It was actually what happened with me and Tina actually once, that we basically, our lesson came to an end, but there was still some free time. And me and Tina actually asked to use the what's it called? The metalsmith.
Yeah.
The metalsmithing tools, and the workshop master had free time, so she was just like, yeah, sure, we'll go and learn some metalsmithing. So we just, yeah, we experimented with anvils and things, which was just awesome.
Oh, I'm so jealous of you. I was actually avoiding using workshops for the past year, and now I feel bad about it. I only use it like last summer. So yeah, we have some wonderful pictures here. So Tina, would you like to share what made you want to study your field?
Yeah, so these pictures are kind of illustrating how like so ever since I was small, I was always making things. Both my parents are engineers. It was kind of just inherent at my home just to be building and playing with things. And then as I got older, I was actually more in the engineering field, and I was pursuing robotics. And so when I was it was coming time to choose a college, I was deciding, or I thought I had to decide between engineering and the arts, and trying to like meld these two fields together. And just I applied to only one industrial design school, got in, and then went there and realized that this was the best combination of the two fields, because I didn't ever want to leave this arts side of me behind, because it was still creative. I was still making things. And I couldn't leave the engineering behind either. And so design for me was kind of this blend of these two different fields. And so here at Alto, that's really where I can see it like come true, because like I said earlier, with this freedom with like our workshops and also some of our classes, you can really learn what you want. And so now I still get to make things every day. I still get to work with my hands. And so it's been a journey towards kind of this dream.
Wonderful. And Owen, how about you?
So from a young age, I spent a lot of time with my grandfather, who used to be a coal miner, in England, and basically I just got my love of mechanical engineering from him, and design in general. He always used to have leftover really old tools and random materials like bricks lying around. So I used to just make loads of random things, and that's really where my love of design really stemmed from. And then as I went through education, I gained a knowledge, and yeah, and here I am.
Amazing. Yusu, do you have another amazing story for us?
I don't know if it's particularly amazing, but I guess like everyone, like both of them, I did start doing art at a young age, and I continued doing it. But then in high school, I went to a purely academic school, so I didn't really have like a path, or my only path was either business or kind of like science field. And so art was kind of inaccessible, at least at my school. So I would go to art classes outside. And so I knew I wanted to do something creative. I wanted to go into architecture specifically. So for me, design wasn't always my number one choice. It's just at the moment something that I think is very like our program in specific is, like I mentioned, so experimental. So even if I have interest in architecture, I'm also learning so many other things. That's like, I feel like my kind of want to study design isn't just now starting. So I think it's okay that you don't have that like dream from before. I'm now like intrigued about the different types of design, about what I can do. So my journey, I would say, is starting now. And yeah, I don't know if that's particularly amazing, but that's my experience.
Yeah, it is. It was kind of same for me. Like before my architecture studies, I was actually in music school, so I completely swapped the
Oh.
professions. So it is amazing to hear all these different paths
That's
that
really
we all
cool.
took. Yeah. So can you tell us more about your studies and how your studies are like? For example, how flexible are your studies, and what kind of courses are there for you? For example, do you have workshops, do you have lectures, do you have projects, and so on? Maybe you can continue, or Owen, however.
Studies, they vary period to period. So at Aalto University, there's 5 periods a year. Some Finnish universities only have 4, but Aalto has 5. And yeah, so they really vary period to period, in a vast array of what you'll learn. So for example, now we're doing a digital service project, but then next period might be doing something more physical, like a physical project, like in workshops again and stuff. So it really depends on the period. But then on top of that, you also have elective studies where you can learn basically what you want to learn, like your own interests. So for example, next period, which is period 2 of the year, I'll be learning Finnish, or some entrepreneurship course in art and design. So it's really cool how you can learn what you have interests in, but then also the mandatory courses help you with deciding that and help you kind of hone in on what you really enjoy.
And can you tell us how much can you affect the courses that you take, for example, in bachelor programs? Because in masters, it's very like flexible, I can choose everything. But how is it for you, Tina, for example?
We have our like mandatory courses. So like Owen said, right now we're doing a digital service design, and that's like the main course for the period. And most of our periods kind of work like that, where there's one main like project course, and it's pretty much always either something physical or something digital, and it kind of alternates. And so that's always like the main workload for the period. But then when you're adding on the electives, that's when you get the freedom to add pretty much anything you want. Like we have people doing ceramics. I know there's like a horse riding course, like I'm doing programming and math right now, chemistry, like you could choose from anything really. And so all of our classes are also, the timing tends to be somewhat like flexible day to day, so you can fit in what you can. And it's really up to you to kind of manage your schedule and decide what you want to study.
And one super practical question, do you have mandatory attendance at the lectures? Because some universities don't. For me personally, it's like always around 90%. So how is it for you guys?
It depends. Like all of our like mandatory courses are 80% attendance, but electives, it kind of depends what department or school you're taking it in.
Okay, thank you. Is it same for you all? Yes, I guess you're nodding your heads. And now we can maybe discuss, are there multidisciplinary opportunities in your studies? So someone already mentioned that you're taking like different courses from different departments. Can you tell us a little more about it? How that works?
Yes, I can go.
Yeah.
So I guess some of the photos here kind of illustrate this. So like in the top left, my focus is on generative design right now, so mostly computer science and industrial design. But I was also curious about sustainable materials, which Aalto has a huge specialty in. And so that was from this summer. I was doing a research project with our Chem Arts program. So that's mixing chemistry and the art and design departments. And so we're working with natural materials, trying to make sustainable products, basically. But then the other pictures are kind of the more technical side. So working with welding for a project course last semester. And on the bottom, I was working with some image recognition stuff for basically practicing my coding. So you can really get a whole range of different subjects in there. I like exploring all these different classes. And so there's definitely multidisciplinary opportunities. If you just like look at the minors list, there's so many different combinations that I really think are only kind of found at Aalto that you won't find elsewhere.
Yeah, I can agree with that. Thank you for your answer. And Ove and Yuzu, do you have similar experiences that you would like to share, or we can move forward?
Yeah, maybe I can add that in the bottom right, it's my picture, and that was when I participated in a course called Gender and Technology. And it was this kind of open for all disciplinary. So we had engineering students, business students, art students, and it was just kind of everyone that was interested in the course could take it. And we just learned about how technology was, or gender sort of defined and kind of affected technology that we use today. And it was just this really open, multidisciplinary subject that really kind of was guided by discussion and just talking with our classmates. So that I particularly found really interesting because at least in the first year, when we were doing courses based on our mandatory or recommended timetable, we didn't really get that much of an opportunity to talk and interact with people of other schools, even in Aalto. So I think just having that one course that was open for all really kind of allowed me to get different perspectives from other people and just learn about their school life as well, just from casual conversation, not necessarily even part of the classes themselves. So I thought that was quite interesting and quite fun for me. What about you, Owen? I don't know if you had any experience.
Yeah, so with my multidisciplinary studies, so I really focused on learning Finnish. That's my kind of thing. I want to live in Finland and work in Finland when I'm older. And I've learned Finnish for a long time now. So yeah, it's like Yuzu said, it's really good to see like people from other schools, in Aalto we have schools. So there's arts, there's business, chemistry. Is there another one? Maybe electric, I think might be one. Yeah. So it was really cool to see everyone coming together and then like learning together, like a common thing. And that's something which is really interesting because you do a lot of group work in Alto. There's a heavy emphasis on group work, like it's been mentioned. So when you've got so many different specialities come into one project, it's really quite fun to see that even in like a language building course, there's still such a high emphasis on group work. And it was really cool to see how other people are managing and getting on.
Thank you. I love the language building quote that you just said. And maybe you can continue and tell us more about the course load here, because it can be sometimes confusing. For me, it was at least in my first year. So can you explain how the year at Aalto University looks like?
So this was our first year. Would like to emphasize also that it does change yearly depending on certain different things like teacher availability and things. So our first year is like this. So I believe the coding is like the yellow, the gold color, they're the mandatory courses. And then red is like partial elective, like what was it, minus?
I
I
think
can't
it
remember
was
what
like
the word is.
yellow was our main mandatory courses, and then the pinks were kind of still the main, but less of a heavier load, as you can see based on the credits. The yellows are 9, 6, 12, pinks are 3s. And then blues were more so our communicational kind of skills, also kind of technical courses like information and communication technology, which was like learning Adobe programs and such. And then green was our elective, but then it was also specific that we had to learn a language. So it was a language course. We didn't really have that much opportunity to do electives in our first year, but then for people that actually did find time or manage time, they still took it. I think it's kind of, this is like the main structure, but then you are allowed to kind of change it a little bit as you talk with your study coordinators.
Yeah, it looks quite busy. So maybe Tina, you can share with us how your typical day at Aalto looks like. It looks busy as well.
It's a little bit packed, but basically most classes start at around 9:15, or at least the earliest morning lectures are. And so I'll wake up, I live on campus, so getting to class is really like a 15-minute walk. And so I have breakfast, I grab some coffee on the way to class. We have lectures, most of the time it's lectures. Every now and then, especially when we do more kind of physical project courses, that time will be spent with like workshop time. And so actually where it has written like morning lecture and afternoon lecture, that really varies day by day, because sometimes you have a lecture you have to be there, sometimes you have workshop time, sometimes you have like free work time. It's really just like a morning work time and an afternoon work time. I always eat lunch on campus because we have a it used to be 2.7, but 3.2 euro lunch, and it's very filling. You get tons of options, and so it's a great choice for food. And then later in the evening, I'll either come home or I'll stay on campus, do some work, go off to exercise and either dancing or running, and then the evening kind of decompress, call some friends, do some reading, and then get off to sleep at around 12.
Yeah, thank you. It seems challenging that you're managing. And now I guess that we can move forward to discuss our campus. So Otaniemi campus is surrounded by nature, and it's only 10 minutes away from the Helsinki city center by the metro ride. And we also have like metro station here in our new building. So maybe someone can tell us, what is the campus like? For example, its location, size, what facilities do we have around, and what it offers to you?
Well, I would have to say, these are all pictures from the campus. As you can see, we're very much surrounded by nature. And I think when I first came, it was kind of mind-boggling that we are basically 10 minutes away from the bustle of the capital city of Finland. But then we come here and it's just greenery, there's lakes, it's just open forestry all around. And I think that's just like the best way to describe it. And Owen, I think, said it perfectly, that we are just so nature bound. So yeah, I would say that's like the main defining characteristic about our campus. And then also facility wise, we have multiple gyms, like student gyms that you can use on campus. There's like a track field. There are restaurants around, student and non-included. Am I missing anything? I feel like those are like the main things that I can think of. Owen and Tina.
There's kind of like a mini shopping center too, kind of Vare, where you can pick up certain things. And campus is also very close to an area of Espoo, because Aalto University is actually Espoo, not Helsinki. So Otaniemi is like a peninsula, and then the campus is very close to two main like kind of center points of Espoo, which is Matinkylä and Tapiola. And there are huge, big for Finland, shopping centers called Ainoa and Iso Omena. So you're always really close to really good forms of public transport. And you're also really close to shopping. Yeah, and libraries also. There's libraries in each of those.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there's a. Oh, continue. Sorry.
Yeah, I think I wanted to like add on to what Yuzu was saying about like the closeness to nature. Like some of these photos are taken like like most of the photos on this outer edge are from like right next to the student dormitories basically. So like that upper right photo of like a bay that's like literally outside my window. And so your access to nature is 24/7. Like I walk through that upper left photo of these like that greenery, that's our walk to campus. I think, or at least for me and Yuzu, walking from our apartments to campus. So you will always kind of get this like calming feeling walking through campus. And it is really crazy how close it all is because we basically live in a forest, but the metro is right there. And then you can 10 minutes in either direction. You're either in shopping malls or the center of Helsinki. And so it's extremely convenient to get anywhere.
Yeah, I can agree with everything you said. I also live on campus, and I just noticed like the picture like on the right down. There's like a barbecue spot, but I love it because it's one of my favorite spots because that's actually the place where you can see the aurora the best, Northern Lights. So if you go aurora hunt around campus, that's the place. And now you can tell me what is your favorite thing about the campus. Tina, you can continue.
Yeah, I think it's pretty related to what we were just saying. So because we're so surrounded by nature, a lot of like the activities that you might do with friends are also going to be nature centric. So hiking, walking, you can do kayaking and like soup boarding when the water isn't frozen. But when the water is frozen, you can walk across it and get ice cream on the other side. So you have tons of options to explore nature. But then the other thing that I was focused on was because like, at least for the campus is quite like interconnected and close knit, it's really easy for me to just go to campus and use any of the facilities. So that right picture is actually a chair that I bought secondhand and I wanted to fix it up. And so I was able to just go to the campus, just bring it 15 minutes that way, get some help from a workshop master and fix up my own furniture. And so like the accessibility, not just to like grocery stores and kind of outdoor activities, but also these just school resources that you can use to kind of improve your life. It's really unparalleled.
And how about you, Owen?
Yeah, for me, but I now live on campus. So I've kind of had both worlds because last year I didn't live on campus. I lived in Helsinki and then in Espoo. So I've kind of had the mix of all worlds around Aalto University, and being on campus is really cool. Like Tina said, you can you can buy furniture or you can find furniture even, and then you can just take it to the workshop and immediately fix it up. Funny enough, like last week, because the campus is so intertwined that there's even like buy and sell chats on Telegram, which is what we use here mostly at Alto, and people post. You can either buy things or you can get them for free, certain things if they feel like it. And I got a free bookcase, like this huge big bookcase. And then I just took it to a workshop and then I just fixed it up and now it's like brand new basically. So it's really amazing how there's that kind of lifestyle. Sports also is great on campus. I play ice hockey a lot. So at certain points in the winter when you're allowed, you can actually skate on the bay, which is really fun. Play ice hockey with friends and just skate in general, have a chat. Barbecuing, like Tina said, is awesome. Food on campus is great. The student discount you get on food is just amazing. You can see the spaghetti bolognese there with Daffa. Daffa is a Swedish-owned organizational restaurant, and that has been doing spaghetti bolognese since like the 1960s every Wednesday, and I do not miss it. It's the best you can get.
It gets crazy on Wednesdays, like the line is all the way to the other building.
You can queue for a good 40 minutes.
Yeah,
Right,
true.
but it's worth it.
And Yuzu, how about you?
Yeah, I agree with both Tina and Owen. For me, it is just like that accessibility to nature. So during the summer, my friends and I, we were basically out by the lake like almost every day having a picnic or just playing like some games like Moku, which is like this Finnish like throwing game. Also, like my friend and I, we love walking, so we just walked for like 3 hours around the peninsula, and it's just super refreshing, and it's amazing because it doesn't get dark till like midnight for exaggerating, but something like that. So I would have to say, especially in those summer months, it was just having picnics and hanging out with my friends all the time. And like Owen mentioned, the food on campus is great. The variety of selection is incredible. There's a restaurant that only serves vegan food that or depending on the price point, some of the menus are a bit different. It's just like I think there's more than 10 perhaps restaurants on campus, so you can take your pick. If one doesn't suit you, you'll find another one that definitely will. So I would have to say that is my favorite thing about campus. Plus, it's affordable, which is amazing.
True, I cannot agree more with you. And yeah, now I guess that people find this one very interesting. So we're going to discuss housing and student benefits here on campus. You already mentioned some, because students in Finland are entitled to many benefits. So can you tell us what kind of housing options are here for students? And the question of the day is it difficult to find a place to live? That's the most frequent question asked in coffee sessions, in Unibody, everywhere. So could you share your experience with us? Maybe Owen can start because he was like moving around the place a lot.
Yeah, I'm probably the newest to getting through student housing. I've had a mix of private housing in Finland and also student. So there's two main companies in Helsinki who do housing relating to Aalto. So there is AYY, which is Aalto University Student Union. They have housing. They have buildings on campus and also off campus in Helsinki and around Espoo. So they have really quite affordable homes for students. You do have to queue for them. There is a waiting list. But from what I've heard, if you basically apply for housing the same day or roughly around the same time as you get accepted, you'll get an apartment, like a room apartment in a shed. And then you can also have waiting lists for studio apartments or family apartments. The other company is HOAS, which is the Housing Federation of Students in Helsinki, mouthful, who also have a similar process as AYY, UQ, and they offer you an apartment. They have them on campus too, and then they have them everywhere in Uusimaa, which is the Helsinki metropolitan region. So that's Espoo, Vantaa, and Helsinki itself. So you have a couple options there, and then there's also the private markets, which in Finland, as a student, you really kind of want to avoid because they are really, really expensive. And HOAS and AYY could offer you something. So it's about what you find. But if you queue for HOAS and AYY and you're logical in the way you apply for your housing and you're realistic, then you'll get something for sure.
Thank you, Owen and Yuzu and Tina. I got it that you both live on campus at the moment. And can you tell me more about maybe apartments type that you live, or is there any furniture there? How they're like?
Maybe I can go first. So I live in one of the oldest buildings on campus that provides housing. And I applied on the same day that I got my acceptance letter. And I also put in that my move-in date was a month earlier than it actually was. That was completely by mistake, but I think that really helped me get an apartment because I had one maybe within a month or two of applying. And so I've been here since my day one in Finland. And when I moved in, it was completely empty. So I did sleep on the floor the first night, but I did go to IKEA the day after, so it was okay. And my apartment type is basically a single room in a shared kind of hallway, I guess is the best way to describe it. So I have a shared kind of dining table and sofa, kind of shared space with a shared kitchen. But then in my own room, I have a mini fridge and a bathroom and shower. And I also live in one of the smallest rooms in my building, but I would say it's pretty, It's great. I have no complaints about it whatsoever. Yeah.
Yeah, I think I lived in the same building in my first months, and it was the best experience of my life. I made so many friends, and we are still friends, and they're just the best people.
Absolutely. Yeah, I like found out just from like the first orientation week that a lot of my classmates lived here, a lot of the older students lived here. So you sometimes just bumped into each other and you know how you have nice conversations even on
Yeah, and this
even
building
at
is
home.
actually designed by Alvar
Aalto,
Aalto. That's a
exactly.
fun fact.
Yeah.
And some doors have like names of the athletes that were here for the Olympics before. Yeah, I lived in the room where like one of the athletes was staying.
That is
Yeah.
super cool. Yeah. I
Yeah, it
recently
was
did find
amazing.
out about it. Yeah, I think
Yeah.
so we call it JMT for short for Jämmerantaival, which is the street. And I recently found out after going to the student museum that's actually on campus that this was used as a hotel for the Olympics. Yeah, it's really cool.
I love it. My heart smells every time someone mentions it.
Yes.
Nina, how about you?
Yeah, I live in I think the pictures here, so that the top left is actually my kitchen, and then the top right is exactly where I'm sitting. But the bottom two are basically, there's two main kinds of like shared apartments that I know. And when I say shared, I mean basically you have your own private room and then you share some facilities, so usually a bathroom or a kitchen in some way. So mine is, I have two roommates, so three people living in one area, and we share a kitchen and a bathroom. And then the lower pictures are, I think the larger, I think usually this is what you have, where it's, I think it's like maybe 6 to 9 people sharing a kitchen. But then everyone has their own private bathroom. And so you kind of decide what trade-off you want. Like, do you want a larger kitchen, but it's more people using it? Or do you want a smaller kitchen and you have to share a bathroom? And then I think rents on average are around 300 euros for pretty much most of the buildings. And this like kind of shared apartment is like pretty much the standard for most people. I think studios are of course tougher to get, but yeah, just like you said, I'm very happy with this. It's also where I've been living since the beginning. I have like a seafront view, so I'm not giving this up. But yeah, for like the price that you get and the space that you get, it's really nice.
Oh, can you just shortly mention what is also included in the fee that you pay for your apartment, like internet and
It's
heating,
all of your
electricity?
like, yeah, your utilities and your internet are included. So you have to get a router for pretty much I think all of the apartments, but yeah, everything is included in like a base fee basically. So you don't get
Yeah,
surprised.
that is sometimes surprising to people, so it's always good to mention.
Yeah.
And we already kind of discussed this. So would you like to share anything else like regarding like campus and how far is it from things, and is it easy to get, like very shortly, because we kind of already mentioned it.
Yeah, it's really easy to get anywhere basically in Helsinki from campus. If you want to go to North Helsinki, like it's called Pohjois Helsinki, Northern Helsinki, you just take the bus from campus. And if you want to go to Helsinki city center, the Keskusta, you just go on the metro. If you want to go to Espoo, you could take the metro or then the bus to Tapiola, and then there's any buses from Tapiola to anywhere in Espoo. So the connectivity is really good. Like mentioned, it's 15 minutes to Helsinki city center. It's 10 minutes to like the furthest point on the metro line in Espoo. There's an extension coming, which is opening, I believe, early next year, which is going to go further into Espoo, which is really good. They're testing it currently. Everything's on the HSL app. Helsinki, can't remember it in Finnish, but it's yep, there we go, HSL HRD, which is the transport authority for Helsinki. So they control all the transportation. So everything's on the app, which is amazing. Pretty reasonably priced for students. You get discount. And then if you want to go domestically in Finland, you can get the train with VR anywhere, basically, in most places in Finland. Or if you're traveling to the airport, you get the metro from campus to the central train station in Helsinki. Then you get a small, kind of like a light rail to the airport, and then you can fly anywhere from there. And the airport's like 45 minutes away from campus. So yeah, it's all interlinked in its own way, and the HSL app is great. And use the Frank app to get the discounts.
Yeah, maybe Tina or Yuzu can explain us something about Frank app, how it's used and how it works, and what kind of like benefits you get from that. Or you can add something else that crosses your mind related to these discounts, but I think that we already mentioned most of these.
I can also add really quickly to the
Yeah.
transportation. So there's basically just one main metro line through the whole like Espoo and Helsinki area. And so that means that like everything is along that path. And then if you're ever trying to get away from that, you basically branch off with trams, buses, or other forms of transportation, maybe biking. And so even just kind of like learning the system is very quick because you just have one line. And then if you have to go elsewhere, there's just, you branch off with one bus basically. And so at least like for me coming from the States, it was so much cleaner and so much easier to understand because you just need to memorize that it's either like you're going west or you're going east. It's very, very simple. But yeah, with the Frank app, I think we've talked already about like the like student food basically is a flat rate of like 3.2 euros at pretty much any of the student restaurants. And that includes like your main meal, a salad, a drink of some sort, milk, water, juice, bread, and usually bread with like other toppings and stuff like that. So it's a very full meal. You could even take home leftovers. And so you get a really good, it's actually, I did the math and it's actually more cost efficient to get your lunch at the student restaurants than to cook it at home. So that's how good of a deal it is. And then maybe for the Frank app, if Yuzu wants to talk more about that.
Yeah, sure. So the Frank app is basically where you can kind of register your student status in. So it kind of acts as like a kind of student card or student ID. And that's what you use to, like Tina mentioned, to get the student discount at the student restaurants. Also, they have like, I guess, collaborations with certain companies. So you can get discounts. For example, I've seen like on ASOS, or even like VR, like Owen mentioned, which is the train company. Maybe I can open it up right now on my phone. So yeah, I just kind of, that's an ad. So yeah, it kind of comes up like this, and this is all the kind of like discounts that you are able to get. And then we have like your own student ID. You show this at like stores and they'll give you a discount. And yeah, I think I mainly use it as like a student card ID thing. I don't really use any of the discounts, but I've seen really good ones. And yeah, and also for the Frank, via the Frank app, you can get like a physical student card. I personally like having like a physical one more than a digital one, because my phone runs out of battery really quickly. So I like that, just that knowledge of having one. And so you can order it through there, and it can be in collaboration with the ISIC, which is like the International Student something card. I'm so sorry, I don't really know the abbreviation, but
you
yeah,
can like link them together.
yeah,
for...
so that's also one thing that you can have. And yeah, I think that's kind of the basics of Frank.
Pretty much it.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for explaining this. It's complex sometimes. So now we can discuss more about career opportunities. So as you already got it so far, students can explore different kinds of work opportunities already during their studies here in Aalto. So we are going to discuss what kind of work opportunities are there, and is it possible, for example, to have part-time in addition to your studies? And does anyone of you have a part-time job? When you can start.
Yeah, so I work for Aalto Squad. Me and Malika are in Aalto Squad. So we're the people you speak to if you want to contact us student-wise. We're on Unibuddy. So if you do have any further questions from what's been asked in the Q&A, which will be answered later, you can then contact us on Unibuddy regarding the program. Yeah, so I've had quite a few different jobs actually in Finland in my time. Yeah, so I did little projects with like Migri, Finnair, Alto themselves, Aalto Squad, and then I also worked for Posti as well. So I've had quite a few jobs, which just nice to have really. So trying to do it with studies can be difficult sometimes because it depends on the period, because some periods are really busy where you might have like a really big project, but then some are quite not so busy. But especially like the current job I have now, which is Aalto Squad, is really cool. It's like you can work when you need and they fit it around your studies, and it's just a really cool job to have. You meet such nice people. I definitely recommend it if you do end up coming to Aalto. But yeah, I mean, there's Finnish job markets as well where you can get jobs. Some do require, well, most, I would say about 80-90% require Finnish, but you can find jobs. It is possible, it just takes time.
And where can you learn about the jobs opportunities? How did you find out for, I don't know, Posse Job or Aalto Squad or?
Well, Aalto Squad came through a friend actually. She was in Aalto Squad, Zina. So Zina told me about Aalto Squad and I joined there. Posti was actually also through a student, but that's quite easy to find on Duunitori, which is the biggest job market in Finland, duunitori.fi. So yeah, my jobs have come through word of mouth basically. Actually, my Finnair one didn't. Finnair I applied for and I got. It was like a small project over the summer for some design ergonomics. So yeah.
Yeah, thank you, Owen, for this explanation. And Tina, Yuzu, do you work? No.
I also work for the school basically. So I work as a campus guide. And so my job is basically explaining like the art and architecture of the campus to visiting groups. Also a very cool job, would recommend, because you learn, first of all of the architecture. A lot of it is like very famous designers. So of course, a lot of Alto design on this campus. But then you also get to see kind of these little like hidden parts of campus that you didn't know were significant, pieces of furniture. Like we have these kind of like architectural marvels, Dipoli, the stools. We have quite a lot of like vintage design, like from all over the world. So like the campus is a little bit like a living museum. And so that job, I basically just track a lot of newsletters. So that's how I find a lot of jobs. And that's how I learn about campus jobs specifically. And my job is very flexible. So I basically just, tours come up and I accept them or not. And so for me, it's easy to fit around my schedule because it just depends on when I have availability. But kind of adding on to what Owen was saying about like the Finnish job market, a lot of it is also just word of mouth. Sometimes like job postings aren't even out there. You just have to talk to a lot of people. Like I have some friends that are looking for like full-time jobs, and that's how they found their work, was like making these like career connections at different events and then asking people explicitly, like, does your company have any openings? So it does take some searching and quite possibly a lot of talking to get to that job, but they're out there.
Yeah, there. I can agree. I also work as a teaching assistant apart from the Alto Squad, and how I got that one, I literally asked teacher, do you need a teaching assistant? And then she said, let me check my budget. So that's also the way to get the job here. And it would be amazing if any of you, because you're in your bachelor's, knows anything about life after graduation and opportunities for students after they graduate. If you have any friends or something, it would be very nice to share. If you don't, we can just move forward, because it's okay if you don't know, because you're in your bachelor still.
I actually have a few friends that have graduated from the Masters in Design programs. And so most of them are employed in Finland, so people want to stay here and continue with their work. Most of them also are in international design firms because, as Owen said, like Finnish is kind of a must in a lot of job postings. So in order to, if you want to work in English, you will probably have to find an international company. But most of them are also learning Finnish quite seriously on the side because just to, expand your opportunities, it is what you have to do. But yeah, most people are working in some form of digital design that I know of. But yeah, happy and settled in Finland.
Yeah, that's
digital design and programming is a very big thing in Finland. There's a lot of English-speaking jobs for UX and UI design. So if you're interested in that, you have a pretty high chance of landing a job probably after your bachelor studies. I also know someone who just graduated architecture, we're on the Finnish side, and she's just got a job in architecture also. So there is
Please connect
possibilities.
me with her. I mean, I should start my job hunting soon.
Maybe also I can add that I went to an event a couple of months ago, introducing, I think it was like a Finnish, or I think it's an international company, but they have a headquarter in Helsinki. And they were, it was like a panelist of graduated Aalto students. And they kind of talked about their experience of finding jobs and applying for jobs. Also what they did, or like during their studies in Alto, and how they maybe balanced work and university. So there are opportunities to even hear about these things, I would have to say.
Thank you, Yuzu, for sharing that. It's always good like to have a bunch of resources where you can learn more about this stuff. And I think that we can move forward to student life, which is very, I would say, very unique and special here in Aalto, but you're going to tell us more about it. So it would be amazing if you would like to explain what is a student culture like, and what are these caps in the photos, and what are these overalls and jackets. I feel that's very exciting topic to discuss. Also the first picture of Amanda and everything. So you
I actually have my jacket with me. Should I go and show?
Why not? In the meantime, Yuzu can like tell us more about it, for example.
Sure. So I had no idea that Finland had such a rich and incredible and really unique student culture before coming here, and I was kind of thrown back, to be honest, with just how much like history there is to kind of every little thing. So as you can see, there are these caps that everyone have. They are, I think there's two types. Correct me if I'm wrong, Tina. There's like a graduation cap and like a technology student cap, or are they the same?
I think the difference is the tassel.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. So it's like when the Finnish students graduate high school, they get the cap,
Yeah.
and they kind of wear it throughout their lives, I would have to say. I've seen everyone wear them. So that's kind of what the hat is. And then they wear, they have like overalls, which represent, or they have a color that represents their field of study. So I think like dark green is business, and it depends on the university, actually, the colors, but everyone has their own thing. And then you wear it for any kind of major events, whether on campus or off campus. And for arts, and specifically Alto arts, we have jackets instead of overall. So as you can see, Owen is rocking. Oh. Rocking our jacket.
It's not focusing very well. Let's do my video thing.
Yeah, I also have my jacket. So we are part of NODE, which is Nuoret Designeret, which is the design association at Alto. And we're the ones that kind of started and pioneered these jackets. And yeah, everyone kind of collects like these patches. Patches are huge things in Finland. And then you can get them at like any event. So like event specific ones, or it could be of a certain guild. There's just all different kinds of them. Yeah, they're, oh, very nice. But yeah, that's like the overall and jacket culture. And I'm actually part of the board of the design association, and I'm the host, or one of the hosts. And basically my job is to organize events for the people in my association, or sometimes have collaborative events with other associations. So one of the biggest ones that I've hosted was with 4 other guilds, the Swedish speaking guild, Prodigal, which is like engineering, something of the engineering, Athene, which is like information sciences or information technology, and architecture guild. So there's just like an opportunity to do a lot. And in the right bottom corner, I had a summer day, or like a summer excursion day, with the other hosts of other associations. And we just gathered and had a great time, just kind of drinking and eating and playing games and chatting, and it's very wholesome. So I would have to say that like these student associations are such an integral part of the Finnish student culture, because it's not just like a group of people that, you know, do sports, or it's not really like a hobby kind of thing. It's so much more. They kind of control and help you get through your university experience. There are people that on the board that are advocates for the students of that specific field or that specific course. There are people like me that are hosting these events. There are people that act as communications or like outreach people that connect people of that association with real life companies outside of the university. So there's these like kind of more official side of these like student associations. And yeah.
Yeah, thank you so much. That was amazing to hear. And maybe we can just go very quickly from Tina, for example. What do you do in your free time here on campus?
I do mostly a lot of dancing and cooking, so that's what those two right photos are. So I do salsa in Helsinki, but also on campus. And then a lot of my friends are international, and so we all kind of gather together and just like cook cuisines from our countries or just around the world. And then that top left photo is Ryanair plane because I'm not from the EU, so coming here I was like, I need to get to every country, I need to explore everything. And with like Ryanair flights and train connections, it's actually really cheap to get around to different places. And so over like any kind of school break or over weekends, I try to visit as many countries as I can, and just try to see as much as I can of Europe, especially because every country has such a rich culture. You kind of, at least for me, coming from the US, like it's finally seeing all these things that I saw in like textbooks and history, like come to life in front of me, especially if you want to see any kind of architecture or design history. There's just so much to explore, and it's really quite accessible. So this is what I try to pack into my day.
Yeah, thank you so much. We have already discussed like lots of things apart from your studies. So I think we are ready to move forward because we need to leave some time for questions as well. Apparently there are many of these. So we can now chat about Aalto community. So as you already know, Aalto is home to a diverse and multidisciplinary community of students, staff, and faculty. So can you tell us shortly about your first week here? How were you welcomed to the community? Maybe who is the most recent here on Aalto? From all of you, who is the youngest Aalto student?
We're all the same, yeah.
Yeah, you're all the same. Oh,
We're all
really
in the same
unfortunate.
class.
Yeah. Oh, you're in the same class. Amazing. Okay, so who would like to share it?
Maybe not me, because I'd lived in Finland like prior, so I
Okay,
kind of
yeah.
already understood what was going on.
Maybe me, because
Yes.
I just came
Mhm.
without really knowing anything. So the first time that I moved here was also the first time I've been to Finland, and also like the European subcontinent. And I would have to say during the orientation week, we have these older students from our program that really help us and guide us throughout the first kind of couple of weeks of us moving here. Even prior to moving, I was in contact with a couple of these tutors, and I was asking them about certain questions, where I should stay, where I could get furniture and whatnot. And so in that certain way, there was already this kind of pre-formed community that was ready to kind of help you whenever you needed. I was also a tutor this year, so I kind of have that experience of prepping of what they would want to know and just helping guide them throughout. And so in that couple of first weeks, in the orientation week, we would have like campus tours. We would have a lot of picnics where we can get to know each other. We would have a lot of events where you can interact with people from your class, but also older people. So I would have to say that was like the into the community. And also, like I mentioned, I'm now as a board member of my association, but before that, I was part of a committee, which is like a smaller kind of like a smaller group formed of volunteers that want to do stuff for the association. And so I was part of the communications committee of the design association, and I just helped like ideate ideas for promotional things, making posters and whatnot. So just being part of the most accessible community at that point when I first joined was kind of the way that I got welcomed in. And through my volunteer experience, I met and talked to a lot of people that were not only part of the design courses in the design BA, but also like master's students and even other students of other associations. So I would kind of have to say that.
Yeah, sounds amazing. My orientation was kind of fun, but it was still COVID times.
Ah.
So yeah, so was it easy for you to make friends and get to know people? Tina, for example?
Yeah, I think because everyone is very eager to meet new people, especially when you're just starting out. And there's constantly social events. Like you could find one for every day, every hour, probably if you tried. And so it's really just a matter of like going to things and putting yourself out there. I found my kind of main like circle basically through actually my roommate through these like shared accommodations, and then she brought me in and introduced me to a bunch of people. And so it's just, you can take your pick of any activity and just get started. Like you said, with in those like those initial weeks, there are just so many activities every day, mostly surrounded around food. And you just kind of sit and talk to a bunch of people and find people who share your passions and interests.
Yeah, super good. And I also have one stereotype here that Finnish people are difficult to get to know. So do you agree? Do you disagree? Is that true?
Depends on the person.
Yeah, I agree. I was gonna say that.
Yeah, it depends on the person. It depends on, I mean, there's people from every country in the world who are hard to get on with. It depends on their state also. But yeah, no, overall they're nice people. They're nice, but they want the best. They understand what it's like moving to a different country, like coming here, you know, the language is really complicated. So they understand, they want to make it the best for you, want to show you the good side of Finland. And everyone here is just so enthusiastic that you can talk to literally anyone. No matter what time of the day, you can speak to someone.
Yeah, I would have to say, especially like Finnish people, they may be shy and a bit quiet, but without a doubt, they're one of the kindest people ever. So even if you come up to them and talk to them, you won't have necessarily a bad experience. I think I've never had a single bad interaction since moving. So
Yeah, I can agree on about this with you. I think I'm holding the record in my friends group of number of Finnish friends that I got. So it's amazing. They're really amazing. And one more question is, what is it like to be an international student in Aalto in Finland? And how was, your expectations versus the reality that you live here? Did Aalto like face all your expectations? Are you disappointed? Is it like, did you overcome, for example?
I can start with it was difficult first getting here, and I think most of the first year, like when you're getting through those first few months, because there's quite a lot of adjustment, not just like flying here for many hours, but also like getting a bank account set up, getting your apartment set up. It's a little bit brutal, very busy for those first, let's say, 2 to 3 months. But once you kind of settle in, it works very smoothly. The Finnish system is very integrated, and so everything just kind of like, your bank account is connected to your like medical and connected to your transit, and it's just one like account and one piece of information. But I think in terms of like this international community that you find here, especially within our program, everyone is international basically in some way. And so people have incredible stories. No one really everyone has like this blend of cultures living in many different places. And this was the first time that I kind of saw that kind of community of people who had also these like very unique backgrounds. But I think from some of these photos, one of the things I would say is definitely the biggest joy is you certainly eat very well because you're blending all these cultures and you learn everyone's traditions. And some of these, I think, like we were having like Singaporean food in the top right corner, and then like some pho in like the top left corner. And you get to learn about all these different countries. And then one of the like kind of unintended side effects that I've learned over the last few months is once you've created all these connections, people might be on exchange, they might graduate, they move around. And if you're ever visiting someone else's country, you actually have these like inbuilt friends and this like network literally across the entire globe. And so if you're ever trying to visit somewhere, you have a question, you can just be like, oh yeah, I'll just call up my friend who's from Panama and be like, do you have any recommendations for this area? Or, ooh, I need to lodgings for a night in France, like anyone here? And it doesn't even have to be your group of friends, because we also have these Aalto international chats and pages, and you can pretty much always find support all over the globe. And it's kind of I think, probably a lifelong support network.
Thank you for sharing this with us, Tina. And yeah, I think that we can also move forward. This is last but not least question for you. Is it possible to survive without knowing any Finnish in your studies?
Yeah, it is possible. In Finland, and actually in Helsinki now, English is actually an officially registered language. So most things in Helsinki, well, mostly everything now is in English. Is in Finnish and Swedish, because those are the two official languages of Finland. And then you'll get information in English and Russian usually. As a side, English is pretty much everywhere. Most key apps such as Frank app, HSL, Alto things, all in English. And if you have any worries, there's always Finnish people to speak to about things. Like certain more official things, like maybe getting insurance, sometimes isn't in English, but you can ask someone, or you can just go to their office and they'll give you service in English. Yeah, it's easy to live here without knowing Finnish, but it's always good to make the effort to learn some Finnish and know the basics at least. So yeah, and it's good to make if you want to really make some real Finnish friends, it's good to learn some Finnish and try like shock them with a one-liner at the beginning. Just pull out a one-line shock, and then they're your friends basically for your entire time. The amount of times I've used that is it's quite true. It works.
Oh, well, thank you for this tip in the end. Okay, I think that would be all from the questions I have prepared for you. And now we can go through the Q&A from the questions that we got in the chat. So first question for you is, are you given enough support from the school so that it isn't too overwhelming?
Yeah, there's support. Alto can get very overwhelming, but there is support there. Your teachers are usually your main support, but then there's also external support you can get from like student healthcare and stuff like that if you need it. But your teachers are usually your main support, and if it gets too overwhelming, you can just send them an email at any point of the day. That was something which was a big adjustment from England, because in England, you're not allowed to speak to your teachers outside of your class time usually. So when I could email a teacher at 9 o'clock at night and be like, hey, this assignment's going a bit wrong, can I have like an extra day to submit it? And they just say yeah, or if they come up with their own terms, they come up with their own terms, but you get support.
That's good to know. Thank you, Owen, for your answer. And then the next question that we have is, did you guys had a chance to do an exchange with another university in a different country during your studies?
That's something that's actually for our third year for people that are interested in going on an exchange program. So we haven't yet. But there are people in our class that are thinking of doing an exchange, and they're already planning it from the second year. I think there are people that even considered it already, or were starting to plan it in the first year, but there is definitely an opportunity to go on exchange. There's, I think, a list of the countries as well as the universities that also have these kind of partnerships with, that you can kind of take your pick out of it. And then I think it can be quite competitive, but I mean, it's really based on your abilities and your motivations. So there is definitely a means to do so.
Thank you, Yuzu. And then we can go forward. So the next question is there a graphic design aspect to the design program, or a UX/UI aspect?
Yes.
Yeah, I would say pretty much all of your courses will have some form of graphic design involved. But yeah, our courses are, I would say, generally split between kind of like a more digital side, so like UX service, UI, and then more of like industrial design and physical products, and most of them kind of fall into those two camps.
Okay, thank you. Then the next question is, how big are the class sizes in different courses? How many people do you have in the class?
I think that also depends on the course. At least for our program, it's relatively new. So in our class, we only have 27 students. But for the first years that started this year, it increased to 42. And I know that I think in arts, it's relatively small, the class size, but I've heard from like engineering and computer science, it can go up to like 100, maybe like a normal like lecture hall size. But yeah, arts tend to be a little bit more smaller and tight-knit, I think.
Okay, thank you, Yuzu. Then we have another question that asks, do we need prior drawing or CAD skills before taking the program?
Absolutely not. I cannot draw to save my life. Well, I can draw buildings and products, but I cannot draw art or paint art. Yeah, you don't need any prior experience coming into this course. You'll learn it all here. Yeah, and especially the computer-aided design, you learn like from day one here at Alto. So
Yep.
yeah, you don't need any prior experience.
Thank you, Owen. And next question is, how hard was it to accumulate to the Finnish culture and lifestyle as a foreigner? How frequently did you feel as an outsider?
It really depends on the person, I think. I don't think there's a set definition of what you feel when you come to Finland. For it also depends where you're from as well. Like if you were from Sweden or Norway, then it would be pretty much the same life. But if you're, for example, from even England, it's just quieter. But there's so many factors which some people would pick up on, and some things which people don't. And it really just depends who you are as a person. But overall, it's just welcoming, I think, at
I
least.
would also like to add that you need to understand that coming in that like the languages are already established, and so you have to know that they're not going to always necessarily accommodate to you. You have to I think respect and come with the respect that it is their language in their culture or in their country, and they're going to speak that, or they're going to be the most comfortable in that. And I think just having that notion in mind will always save you that kind of disappointment. Perhaps, for example, when I'm in my committee meetings with the other hosts of other associations, they're all Finnish. Myself and my partner are the only international people in an 80 people committee. And so they tend to have most of their meetings or their chats in Finnish, but if we want to, and we do, we always just translate it. We don't really ask for it. And if we do, and if there is something important and we want to be part of it, we always ask of them, and they're always really accommodating. I think it's just always just come in with that respect that it may not be what you have in mind, but yeah, just.
I think that's a really good point. Just respect Finland for what it is and the people. Don't like force your ideals upon Finns and things like that. And don't be like, I'm not doing this because it's in Finnish, or I'm not doing this because it's Finnish kind of thing. You have to really embrace and enjoy the culture. And yeah, you have to really respect Finns. That's one thing I would say.
Perfectly. Thank you, Ellen. You saved me.
Yeah, thank you for these tips. It's very useful for newcomers. And also, next question is, do I need a portfolio?
I would say that's more of an admissions related question. It depends on the assignments which they give for the program when it's released. There's no like set standard thing you need. It just depends what pre-assignments they give for the admissions process.
at least for us, we didn't. Everything in the application process was created from new, so a portfolio wouldn't have helped.
Okay, but yeah, you should double check with your web page on your program, or maybe send question to admissions, because these things changes like from year to year. So it might be that something is different from when you were applying. So yeah, that's the question for the admissions. And the last question of the day is, do you have plans to work in Finland after graduation?
I'm pretty open with my choices at the moment, but I'm not inherently like an objection to it. I think there's a lot of opportunities in Finland. And now I'm also kind of getting into like the more like the business aspect of it. I kind of want to explore entrepreneurship and business along with design. And I think that's kind of almost in abundance in Aalto, at least in their courses and these events that they do. So I'm pretty for like working in Finland and staying in Finland later.
Tina, how about you?
I'm currently planning to return to the US just to be close to my family. But I think for like the second part of it, is it hard to find job as a non-EU person? I think it's less about even like your non-EU status and really more about the language for certain opportunities. And so for me, like I don't speak Finnish. So for me, it's kind of a matter of language and also proximity to family, but it's a lovely place to stay for sure.
Thank you,
Yeah,
Tina.
I mean, I want to stay in Finland after studies, doing something related to design. Not sure what yet, but there's many, like Tina said a while ago, there's lots of international corporations in Finland which can do that, or also entrepreneurship. So yeah, and also I saw in the chat that people were talking about Russian speaking people. Is there any on campus? I just wanted to mention this because it's been mentioned like 6 times or something. I know quite a few Russian speaking people. At least there's like 3 in our class, 4. And then also there's a lot of Estonian speaking Russians in Alto. I've worked with many Russians as well. So there is definitely Russian people here and Russian speaking people here.
Okay, guys, thank you for your answers, and thank you for all of your questions that you sent to Q&A. Unfortunately, we don't have time to answer all your questions, but the good thing is that Owen and I and our colleagues are having these coffee sessions on Friday. So if you would like to discuss something else, you can join us there, or text us on Unibuddy. And what comes next is that you just have to apply to Aalto between 4th and 18th of January 2023. So yeah, as we already mentioned in the beginning, if you have any other questions about applying to Aalto, you can join the webinar this Thursday with the Aalto admissions, and also send them an email. They also have their own Unibuddy channel, so you can contact them there. As I already mentioned, if you have any more questions, chat with us on Unibuddy. You can join the squad for our Friday coffee sessions. They're always from 2 to 3 p.m. And for latest news, upcoming events, and useful links, you can check out our aalto.fi/studies. And that will be all for today. Thank you all for coming. It was amazing seeing this many people here. Thank you to Yuzu, Tina, and Owen, my today panelists, on an amazing discussion. I had so much fun with you, and I hope that our listeners had it too. And that would be all for today. We hope to see you all on campus next year. And yeah, if you happen to see us, just say hi. Thank you.